So, what occurs to me, first of all, David, I'm anxious to know because we have, I like titles of exhibitions. So for this show, we have 50-year retrospective, which is, tells what we're doing. But if you could say that you had a theme that you wanted us to take away from this exhibition, just a feeling about it or something, what would that sort of subtitle be?
I think probably one of the things that I try and do my whole life is inspire. And that's what my paintings pretty much
Just,
oh,
that's perfect.
inspire.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
And it's like, it doesn't matter if it's music or it could be, painting. And I've done, like in St. Bart's, I had for 35 years, I opened my studio for kids, and any age really, that would want to maybe play the guitar or learn to paint, but for 2 hours every Saturday and I would usually spend 2 to 3 months there, and it was the perfect spot. In fact, I left in '89, and I told my friend Eddie, who kind of ran the Select then, and in fact, he gave me his room, was what I made into my studio. But anyhow, I said, I'll be back in a couple of years, but that didn't happen. I spent 8 years. I come back in '98, and everything was in the studio pretty much like I left it. And I moved right back in, and I started up these classes where I could inspire kids to, we did silk screening, we made little model boats that we could have races when they would in the harbor, and then if somebody looked like they wanted to play the guitar, I had guitars. In fact, Jimmy Buffett gave me 3 guitars to some of the kids that were really go-getters. They got a guitar, but we always did something, and to see that over the years, I came back in '98, and by the later, 2000s, I think 18 was the last time I spent in the studio. Some of my friends who their kids went to those early classes became graphic designers. I don't know if it had anything to do with me, but they would come every Saturday. And I realized, if you can inspire kids, it's one of the greatest things. I did it going around the world. I always took musical instruments, and I'd meet a family, and I'd say, hey, I'll come over and we'll have dinner and play a few songs. And it was a couple years later, went on the other side. I was by then in Singapore or someplace like that. And I saw the family that I had dinner with, and there it came again. He said, my son saw what you did that night, and now he has his own band, rock and roll group. Things like that, so that's, in my life, that's probably the most treasured thing that, I do my paintings. You look, all these paintings are people that have come along in my life that meant something to me. I've got, and my friend Channing, she's in a lot of the paintings, and we met like 25 years ago. Now she's playing music still in Key West here, but doing really well. And you look at some of these other paintings that this was around the millennium. I took Keith Richards over to a friend of mine's bar, and he hands him a Stratocaster, and he plucked a string one time, and the power went off. And so we went out on the beach, and that's how that painting came to be. And then the power came back on, and we went back inside and played there for a couple hours. But you notice on the, that was the way the bar looked, right? It was called Ivan's Campground. Underneath the sign was written, "No shirt, no shoes, no problem." I said, well, I'm going to put that on there. I bet you. Because Kenny, he's over the years collected my stuff. So he came to the studio to take a look at it. And he said, well, I'm buying, it's sold. Consider it sold. So I haven't even showed it to Keith Richards yet. But now that this video came out with 2 million hits, somebody's going to send him a video because the painting's in the video. So, and then you see this guitar, that's the guitar that's in the painting. So it's signed, right? Keith Richards to Dave and all that. If there's a whole thing going on about Keith Richards still be around after the Acropolis or whatever. There'll only be 2 things left, cockroaches and Keith Richards. But I've led a lot healthier life than him. And I didn't have to go to Sweden and have my blood drained once a year, like he did. But if he kicks off, this guitar, I'm going to put it on eBay, and then I'll sell it for whatever the highest bidder is. It could be a couple $1,000, or it could be $1 million. Who knows what's out there, right?
So David, it sounds like I wonder if they're equal parts important to you: travel, painting, music, and the people. When you travel, like you're a world traveler, sailor. So you're painting and you're sailing around the world, and your music. They're all sort of equal. They're equal forms of expression to you.
It's like. People say, what was your favorite place going around the world? I go, I have 5 daughters. Well, who's your favorite daughter? Like I'm supposed to come up by, I've been to places really, New Zealand, beautiful place, Borneo, Madagascar, even South Africa. Well, I had a wonderful time there. So, you can't really say favorites.
So did you, as far as the painting, when did that start? Is that something you've been doing all your life?
I started, then again, it's talk about inspiration. My mother's youngest brother, my uncle, I would go to visit my grandmother, sometimes on weekends, and he was painting. Mm-hmm. He was a painter. And he painted portraits, and he was really good at it. And he showed me how to mix colors, oil paint, nothing to do. I didn't even know what acrylics were then, but he gave me a little bit of paint, just the primary colors.
And you're saying about what age were you at that time?
I was 8 years old, and I have that painting in my cabin in Maine.
Wow!
And it's a picture. I'm not religious or anything, but it was a picture of Jesus. The classic picture, Jesus staring off into wherever, and in a white robe, and with the beard, and it was just a good subject matter for me. But my aunt, I think, had that painting, and somehow then she gave it to me. But 8 years old, I'm doing oil paintings. Mm. And I've never really ever taken an art lesson. But that got me going right there. So that says the power, a lot about that, the power of being inspired. And he really inspired me. And my brother Tim, is he over there? My brother Tim, he was a little younger than me. And he would come, and my grandmother had my uncle played the piano. And not real well, but he played the piano enough, and he inspired my brother. Later on, he went to Boston to the conservatory and learned how to tear pianos apart. He had a music store on Caroline Street, before he died. And a lot of, Leonard Bernstein came by and would drop in every now and then. That's the thing about Key West. You never know who you're going to run into here. It's like, just like Kenny Chesney coming over to my studio. We have coffee and with my friend Richard every time he comes to town, because it's a fun thing for him, So.
And so the paintings here that you have, so you, when you started painting as a young one, inspired by your uncle, did you continue to think of yourself as an artist, like as a teenager and all these times? Or?
From that day on.
Yeah.
I started, even when I was in high school, I would, my uncle was doing it too. He would do pastels, but what really made me take off on doing portraits, I went to the fair it was up on the racetrack, in Fort Wayne. And I saw this guy, he had a whole line of people, and he was drawing charcoal portraits. And it was $1.50 for a side view and $3 for a front view. And he was really quick, and he just saw me standing there. Finally, he said, are you an artist? Somehow he knew. I said, yeah. I said, or he said, sit down over here, there's some pencil there, and take some of these people. I sat down and I made, in one night, I made $100. And I was like 13 years old or something like that. But I just watched what he did. It's just on gray paper, and he was using charcoal, and he'd take a little bit of white pencil and make a little bit of highlight. And bingo, $1.50. But he did it in 5 minutes. So if you add that up, back then, $1.50 every 5 minutes, and then do it three. And then I started doing, my uncle showed me how to do pastel. And then I would go to the malls and before Christmas, and people would hand me pictures. I'd take them home, and I think I got like $25 moving into color. So, and then, but from learning how to do that in those first charcoal drawings, and then into pastel, then I started doing more oils. But you can see there's I do a lot of portraits because people, I have one over there, it's Lola Schnabel. I don't know if you know who she is, but her father is a really famous New York artist, movie producer, and he gets probably millions for his. She was in St. Bart's, and I was trying to get an ice cream cone. We got to talking, and she says, well, I hear you're an artist. Can I do a picture of you? I said, yeah, come on up to the studio anytime. She did. She brought her watercolors, and the deal was she would do a picture of me, I would do a picture of her, and we'd trade. I figured if her dad get $1 million, she must be worth, her paintings would be worth at least 50,000 or whatever.
So this is the daughter of Julian
Lola
Schnabel?
Schnabel, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So she started it, but she never finished it. And then the COVID came, and so I just hung on to it. And but that was how I happened to do that painting, But there's some other ones here. There's one up here with the little baby. Now he was that was Peter Barnhart. He was one of the first people I met here, and he was a carpenter, and he lived just right off of Duval, not far from here. just off of between Symington and Duval. Anyhow, that picture was from a photograph. He had asthma, and he went to visit his grandbaby. 2 days later, he had an asthma attack, didn't have his medicine with him, and died. And it just, it was sad that it happened that way, but I did that picture just to remember him and leave it behind. I don't know where somebody buys that or what'll happen to it, but it's a piece of history of Key West. And so that's kind of what I do. I'm just like my friend Bill Clipp. He photographs like the Andes Cabana ever since we started doing that. During the COVID, he would come and he would make calendars, and we started getting more musicians together, and every Thursday night we would, like last night was really good music last night, and the place was packed. And Richard, he likes it because he has the bar there that's open, so it pays his mortgage pretty much.
So when you say that about the paintings that you've done, especially the one of the gentleman and the baby, I have two things that come to mind. The first thing is, are you doing mostly, or do you prefer doing pieces from taking your photograph of a person and doing it, or sitting there in front of them?
I'll take a whole series of photographs,
Yes.
and I'll look at them. And then you see this one back here? That's the cover of my book,
Mm-hmm.
the new book. There's like a dozen people. Even Bill is there photographing it.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to capture that scene because I've been going to this cabin 43 years. I've never missed a year. And we always have music on the porch. But this was an exceptional year. It's like a lot of people, a lot of Key West musicians showed up. So.
And this cabin is where?
This is on an island on a lake in Maine.
Okay.
And it was a bunch of my friend Heidi here and sailing friends. We were all, some sailed around the world, some sailed to the Marshall Islands, and kind of ski, but we would always meet in summertime, the first weekend of August. We still do. This summer we'll meet again.
Yeah, I heard of someone telling me they went this summer to...
my friend Cayman that plays at Blue Heaven a lot. A lot of musicians came out.
Yeah. The second thing I was thinking about with regards to painting and painting portraits, I see a few self-portraits. And talk to me about that.
Well,
and is it something you like to prefer? Is it something that's...
artists of, Van Gogh, artists have always done that, and you're leaving a piece of yourself behind. And fortunately, that one, my good friend, bought the one of me it's over there in front of my cabin. I was going to leave it to my daughter here, but she don't mind. I'm going to leave her the money. So it's every painting is valued in the eye of the beholder.
And we have a self-portrait of, I think it's a self-portrait of you, the bronze. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a bronze I did, and let's see. But I've got some other that I've sold over the years, self-portraits.
Uh-huh.
But that really, this one, I'm in that one too. I'm on the glider swing, having the dream, see. And I'll continue. I'll probably do another one, but I don't know what the scene will be. But, it's like, there's one right there, and that'll be hanging in Kenny's house in St. John, probably. So you got to spread yourself around a little,
So yeah, it seems like you'll still be doing them in the future.
But if you can get paid to do it, then
yes.
that's the best. It's not even a job anymore. It's fun.
Yes, yes. And speaking of that, talk to me about, are there things that you wish to do still in art that you haven't done? Whether it's a medium or whether it's a subject, whether it's, tell me about that.
Well, I've done a variety of things, but I'm starting to think, well, this show worked out pretty good here at studios. Maybe I'll come up with something new, and maybe next year do another show here. It's just a matter of going to interesting places and meeting interesting people and making pictures of them.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So I've gotten pretty good at doing that, over the years of the places I go. And Key West is probably, one of my favorite places to, outside of Maine, St. Bart's. I didn't make it to St. Bart's this year, but I'll go probably in the fall. Because the friends,
Yeah.
got to go see them.
Yeah. Well, I understand that in addition to the bronze pieces, that you do a lot of three-dimensional work. Is that right? Like you make things, like you enhance things.
I just dyed 35 T-shirts today in my spare time, and I'm getting ready to silkscreen some of my designs. So I'm doing by the weekend, I'll have probably all of them printed. And so what I do, I silkscreen and I take a white T-shirt and I've got a method where the way I wad it up in a ball and throw it in a 5-gallon bucket and wring it out, and it comes out art.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
In 10 seconds.
So are you going back in and painting or drawing on them? But the dye.
Yeah, I don't have to draw. I've got a silk screen,
Okay.
And now I've been experimenting because the studio is called the Chicken Reserve. I've made a spotted chicken in styrofoam as a stamp, and it's not real big. And there's some baby chickens, underneath it. But it's just a stamp where you take a roller, you roll the silk screening instead of squeegeeing through a silk screen, you put it on the stamp, and then you just boom, boom. You do it a couple of times.
Okay.
And with the silk screen, that makes it and then dyeing the shirt, there's 3 procedures to make it art. And my friend Richard, he sells them in Blue Heaven and OKW. I have shirts there. But shirts like you don't see any place else.
Yes.
Unusual.
And it feels like as I've gone around town that there are many places where there's your art, you've enhanced.
The Green Parrot, you go there, the library, the air pump, it's the old red with a crank on it, they were famous back in the 50s and the 60s, but where you could go and get air for free. You can't, it used to be, you want to fill up your bicycle, you'd have to go clear over on Truman to the gas station. That was the only air pump that was free. No, it was free, and then they start charging there. So then there was no place, and John from the Green Parrot says, I want to put in a compressor, but I want to make it look like the old one, and he looked on the internet, $2,000 to buy a real one. And I said, John, I'll make you one. I'll get a block of wood, and I got an old license plate cover and a hand crank from a window, and $200. It's been there now like 15 years. And there's always people coming by and filling up their tires. And then we start talking about, hey, people are bringing books. So we started the little library. And then I faux painted I just had people come, hey, think of a book, and I'll put you in the library. On the cover of the doors opened up. And so that's how that came to be. And then John would say, hey, I've got this banjo, New Lost City Ramblers came to town and left it. Can you paint something? And so there's about 5 guitars and a couple of banjo up on the wall in the Green Parrot. Then I made a bar and put my paintings on it. And it just evolved over the years, you know.
Okay. And then one person sees that you do this, and other people, they ask you to put your signature on it.
Who did this? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Oh, it's just one block over, the chicken preserve. Yeah.
Wonderful. I still want to ask a little bit about the paintings. If this is a 50-year retrospective. Tell me something about the earlier paintings as opposed to the later ones. Do you feel that they're different?
Well, you see the one that's the book cover? That's 50 years ago.
The large piece here on the panel.
I did that. I was working in pastel because I was in prison. Up in a bunch of different prisons, but for smuggling 22 tons of hash. You know, now it's legal, but back then it wasn't, and they didn't. The government didn't like it, so. And that's a whole story how that happened. Came from we got on a freighter in Trinidad, went over to the Mediterranean to Spain, and it went on for like 4 months. We're trying to put this together, and finally it all fell through because my friend disappeared that hired us, right?
Okay.
In the Adirondack Mountains, flying over to Canada, pick up $1 million in cash, and crashed his plane. And so the whole deal then, the shrimpers that were supposed to offload, we ain't touching that boat till we get that money, right? So then these other people in charge said, go up to New York. We have a tug, gonna tow you in and just get off the boat, right? And bam, you got $250,000 each. I had 3 other friends, right? Who came to the show.
Okay.
Over here, yeah. And one is a lawyer now. And so that happened, and so we got busted, you know, by Sandy Hook. Anyhow, I had bought a house here for back then $13,000, and then I had a daughter by my friend Barbara, and so I was getting out of prison, and because we got 6 months knocked off, and then I come back to Key West and find out my girlfriend had a boyfriend, got my old boat back, and I had done all these pastels while I was in prison, and I took them down. I sailed back to St. Bart's, and that's when things really started to happen as far as my art career, where I was really making money. Before that, I did jewelry, and it got, you know, like mermaids, but real small. But it got to be really old after a while, and that's why I went on the boat to make some real money, right? And anyhow, that didn't happen. But I got to St. Bart's, and I found out a friend of mine was part owner in a Tour de Rocher, which was owned by Jimmy Buffett and Larry Gray, Jimmy's boat captain. And a friend of mine told me to go up and say, hey, take these pastels up there and have a show. So I did. And then I was on my boat, so I'm going to Antigua. I'll be back I'm going to go down for race week. I came back 2 weeks later. They sold everything, and they gave me $5,000.
Okay.
And so then I started doing stuff with Eddie at the Select and making cheeseburger t-shirts. And then I got the studio with the kids and started doing that.
Wow, you slipped that one right in there.
So,
So I didn't expect to hear prison stories.
You think being busted for 22 tons of hash, and I thought, they said, you're going away. If you don't tell us who hired you, you're going away for 20 years, you know. And when you got a little 4-year-old daughter, you're going, oh, I realize she's going to be grown up by the time I get out, you know. And then to just do these paintings, because I had all this time, it forced me to be an artist. And then to come back, and I did do that painting when I came back. That one and one more.
Okay.
And I sold it to another smuggler for $2,000. And that's how I went to the St. Bart's. I got my paintings and I jumped on the boat and ended up and then I went every year to St. Bart's. And then, so it's funny how a tragedy turns out to be probably the best thing. It pushed me into being an artist.
Into doing the art.
When I saw they gave me $5,000, I said, I don't need to be fooling around with these. I made shower curtains and everything to make your boat look empty when they were stuffed full of, but I was the island artist, you know.
I see.
Back then, there were all kinds of tricks, smuggling tricks. You know. But now it's legal, so it's, you know, you can grow it in almost every state. So, you know, what's criminal? You know? And another thing, you know, that I said my friend, co-defendant, became a lawyer. He became a lawyer. He married, not only that, he married the art teacher that gave me the pastels in the prison. You know where Epstein was? You know, Epstein, the pedophile? I was in a cell like he killed himself in. There's no way you can kill yourself. And, you know, in those, there's nothing in there to tie even a bed sheet to hang yourself. You can't do it. It's impossible. Anyhow, she got me pastels, and that's when I started doing them in, you know, all through it was only in 10 months, remember. But we got out, and then my friend became a lawyer, and the law firm said, go up to New York and represent us. There's a law conference. He goes up, and the head speaker was the judge. A famous judge who had tried the hijackers from East Berlin to West Berlin back then in the late 70s. He had just been over there, and they made a movie with Sean Penn. It was in the movie. And he wrote a book called Tiger in the Court. Well, Judge Stern was his name. My friend went up to him and he goes, Hartman, what are you doing here? He recognized him. I mean, talk about a twist of tales. But I became an artist then in St. Bart's. That's when I really, my friend Eddie, there was a bartender downstairs, opened his own restaurant. People would come in and he'd say, oh, you gotta meet my friend David. Go up to his studio. People would come up there and they'd buy t-shirts and paintings. I had all kinds of things. And I would always come back to Key West, you know, with a bunch of money, you know, and then go to Maine. And so it made life simple. I didn't have to even think about. But by then, you couldn't load a boat up with marijuana because they had photography that could photograph from the air, and they know which boat was carrying it. So that was the end of that. You know, so I became an artist.
Well, David, thank you for that. That's a great. evolutionary story of how you became an artist. So,
Yeah, well, I was forced into it
yeah.
by the DEA. Is there any agents here tonight?
So, David, if you will indulge us, I'd like to go ahead and invite people to ask questions for you. So let's do that. If anyone has a question, I think it may be good to raise your hand or something, and then we can find you, we can hear you. So anybody that's got a question, please feel free.
Who is your favorite painter in history, artist, in art history?
Favorite artist? Well, Van Gogh was, pretty, I think he only sold one painting. He needed a better marketing agent, I think, than his brother. His brother died, I think, 6 months after he died. So, but his wife, his brother's wife, she did more to really get his name out there, And I try and buy a Van Gogh now, right? But I don't know what 100 years from now, any of these paintings that are in here, they'll either be in somebody's attic or in a museum somewhere. But I'm giving it my best shot,
Okay.
So,
Okay, someone else has a question there?
Yeah, I understand you were responsible for that old wooden boat in Mallory Square.
yeah, I took this guy Peter around, and that was one of the things I was going to show him. And I had just been down there, and it was looking pretty bad. They'd taken the mast, but chickens were living in it, and the termites, any wooden boat, that boat was there 30 years, and one of the most photographed, and I get there, and it was gone. I'm trying to tell this guy, Peter, I had a boat here that I had built for Ed Swift, and they'd taken it away. So, but yeah, that was the Mary, and yeah, it was an old hair shop sailboat that was made out of teak planks and everything, and I cut the cabin off and I made it into a turn of the century sponge boat, and I had a cook stove on deck. Everything was like real authentic, and it sat. And from time to time, I would, I would, patch it up a little bit, but the termites and chickens won. So I don't know. They probably, they come over to the chicken preserve now. I would like to think that, but anyhow, yeah, that was a nice, but it was real, real looking. Well, one of my sculptures,
Anyone else have questions?
I'd like to hear what your current boat is like. What style or what is it like?
The current what?
Your current boat.
So your current
my
boat-
current boat is my boat I had for 37 years. Hurricane Irma destroyed almost every boat in St. John, and another big power boat hit it in the hurricane and sunk it, pushed it in the mangroves, and diesel fuel went everywhere, and it was like the end. There's no way I could have cleaned it up and salvaged it. So I bought another boat then. It was one boat that didn't sink, but the mast and the hatches and everything were gone, and a much bigger boat, 45 foot. And I worked on it a couple of years, got the mast almost ready to go in. And I came to the point, this was only a couple of years ago. I'm not going to spend any more of my life in a boatyard. And I said, I ended up selling it to a friend. He bought it for a project for his wife, and then they got divorced. But yeah, that was, I did the book instead, you know, this book here. And I'm so glad that, you know, Bill and Linda, they helped me do it, and they led me through the whole way. And we printed 1,000, and in 6 months we sold 1,000 books. And now Bill told me that the Green Parrot, since that video of 2 million, Green Parrot has sold 100 books in the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
So now the new book's gonna be coming out. So I'm gonna spend my time, my grandkids, my great-grandkids, and going up to Maine. And I've got another boat that when my 2 youngest daughters were 5 and 8 years old, I built a boat and up in Maine, right by my cabin. I put it on the truck and I took it to Saratoga, where I had an old RV on an orchard and a lot of friends. And we rode the whole length of the Hudson River in 2 weeks. And so that was about 25 years ago, long time. But it had got rot in it and stuff. And so last summer, I spent, you know, and gave it some love and put about 10 planks in it and fiberglass the bottom, and it's all ready to just sail on the lake. So it's sail, or it's got electric motor. So that's what I use to go to town up there. So that'll be my only sailing from now on, but no boat yards. A boat yard up there is really fun because, you know, it's on the island and the water's really clean. It's not like boat yards can be real nasty places, you know, because you got other people, you know, spraying chemicals. So that's kind of where I'm at.
That's one. That's good. I think there was another question here.
Yes, I'd like to know, how did you end up in Maine? What brought you to Maine?
Well, that was because my friend Heidi here and her husband, they had a boat too. And, you know, I ran into them, but we knew each other from the Caribbean because we all sailed around together. But I was in Newport, just come back from the Cape, and I had my friend Barbara and my little daughter. And I'm walking by a restaurant, and looking in the window, I see Larry and Heidi in a town I'd never been in before. And they said they just went up to Maine and they bought land on an island. And then shortly after that, I had a friend come knocking on my door and say, "You want to make some real money?" And that whole scenario. But when I got out of prison, one thing I did, I took my daughter, she was 5 years old then, and we hitchhiked from Key West up to Atlantic City, got on a boat, sailed to Martha's Vineyard, and Martha's Vineyard to Nantucket, and then took the ferry to the mainland, and then hitched from there within 30 miles of the island, Toothaker Island, where Larry and Heidi had bought the land. And that was my first year up there. It was with my daughter, Crystal. And I've been going ever since. So it's because of Larry and Heidi, they started it.
You said it was 43 years that you were up there?
43 years, and I guess next year will be 40, or now it's 44 when I go up, end of May. I leave here, and it takes me a month to get up there, but I drive every year up and back. I used to drive clear to Wisconsin and from Maine, and then would drop my 2 youngest daughters off, and then down to Key West. Always back here by October for the Green Parrot costume contest, which I won 4 years in a row. So spray foam, things like that, you can do a lot as far as Fantasy Fest and all that.
Any other questions? Linda?
I have a question.
Yes.
So David, when they make a movie about your life,
Who's doing that?
well, someone will. Who do you think will play you?
Oh, Brad Pitt. Or, you know, I saw him in the movie here, Beach Bum. Matthew McConaughey probably would be the better. He's a little taller and he's more of a down-home guy, you know. So, yeah, I think if I have anything, I'm still alive and have anything to say about it, that'll be. But I don't know who's going to play Bill Clip though. Maybe Danny DeVito. So, you know, like I said on that video, you know, everybody is the director of their own movie. And if you have a shitty movie, then you either got to get a better cast and write a better script and the people you hang out with and get yourself into a good movie. So, but my movie, I don't see how it could get any better.
Maybe your third book should be a screenplay.
My third book, I haven't even thought, I'm trying to get through the second one. Well, this would actually be the third one. When I started sailing, I went to the Virgin Islands in '74. I did a book called Cruising Without Cans. It was a cookbook that I printed up at Penny Saver, you know, and I stapled them together. And I made 500 books about 4 inches square. And so that was my first book. But this second book is been doing really well. And I think 50 years of stories in the next book with some photos will be a winner too. So anyhow.
Other questions?
Is your studio open up to the public?
Yeah, come on over. Yeah, you come in the morning because I get up early. I go have coffee with Richard, and then I'm back there by 9 o'clock. And then by noon, I'm off doing stuff, you know. So I'm always there in the morning. Yeah, come on by.
Other questions? Right here.
If you could have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would you have dinner with?
Well, tonight I'm having dinner with my daughter, my oldest daughter, sitting right here, and my good friend Heidi, and Katie here, another friend, and probably Sharon will tag along, who used to sell my T-shirts on Duval Street across from Margaritaville. You know, remember Hard Luck Cafe? And the marshals came and said, no, this is too much. We're gonna, you know, you got it. They confiscated all the shirts. I ended up doing it in the Virgin Islands. I sold a bunch. A friend of mine had a grocery store, and it became the Hard Luck Cafe. And so a lot of power in T-shirts.
Other questions?
Did you sell the house that you bought?
No, it's actually gone. I didn't really get divorced because I wasn't married, but when your girlfriend says she's got a boyfriend, you know, that happened to me 3 times in my life. And it's like, you get a little gun shy, you know. But I was happy I got my old boat back because I sold it to another smuggler, and he was going to go to Jamaica, but he left the boat out at the boatyard at the marina, and they were selling it for dockage, $800. I went out there, hauled it out, painted the bottom, and it wasn't long. I ran off then with the checkout girl from my brother's health food store, my brother Tim. So, and then down to St. Bart's, and then became a famous artist then. So, anyhow.
So other questions? The last, right here.
I'm just curious what freedom means to you in a life.
Freedom?
Yeah.
Well, you'll know what freedom is once, if you ever go into like a prison, like Atlanta Penitentiary, and when you're staring through bars, and they take your freedom away, and they give you a number. Like I had a number from day one, you know, in MCC in New York. My friends, my other co-defendants, we all had numbers, right? And it's like you're in a filing cabinet. But the art teacher came with the pastels, and they even had a dance teacher. The elevator door would open, and she'd go, "Dance class," and the four of us, right? We go up on the roof, and we joined the dance class. And she had it filmed, our dance, on the roof of the prison, and it won an award at the Whitney Museum in New York City. And she was a famous dance instructor that she ended up doing a thing over on the Holocaust. She went back to Holocaust survivors to someplace in Poland or someplace. But Tamar Rogoff, if you look that name up, she's pretty famous. So it's amazing the people you would meet, you know, through some kind of, where you think it's the worst thing, your freedom's taken away. But if you keep a positive attitude, not even the federal government can hurt you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. I would like, yes.
Wow.
So thank you for being with us.
I know what Kenny feels like up there getting all the applause.
At the Sphere, he's going to be at this. I don't even have a concept what a Sphere. I know what IMAX is, but Sphere in Las Vegas. Well, he'll have pictures, I guess, or somebody will.
So I'd like everybody to take another look at the show while you're here and enjoy. And I think a lot of you know each other, so talk with your neighbors. So thank you. Come through?
5-3.
Yes.
Oh, I come from Indiana with a banjo on my knee. Bound for Louisiana, Key West,
I got to think of a girlfriend, a good girlfriend. And there's been so many, I can't think of one.